September 7, 1822. On the banks of the Ipiranga River, a young prince raised his sword and shouted, "Independencia ou morte," independence or death. This was not just a cry. It was the moment Brazil broke free from centuries of colonial chains and declared itself a nation. But how did the jewel of Portugal's empire, governed by Europeans for over 300 years, transform into one of the largest independent countries in the world, led by a Portuguese prince himself? For over 3 centuries, Brazil fueled Portugal's wealth. Gold from Minas Gerais, sugar from vast plantations, and later coffee, all crossed the Atlantic. Lisbon prospered, but Brazilians bore the cost. Heavy taxes, trade monopolies, and lack of political representation left resentment simmering. Yet, compared to Spanish America, Brazil was relatively stable, until Europe was shaken by Napoleon. In 1807, Napoleon invaded Portugal. Facing defeat, King João VI fled, not to another European stronghold, but across the ocean to Brazil. For the first time in history, a European empire ruled from its colony. Rio de Janeiro became the capital of the Portuguese world. Brazilians suddenly found themselves at the center of power. Ports opened to international trade, universities and printing presses appeared, and Brazil was elevated to a united kingdom with Portugal. When Napoleon fell, King João returned to Lisbon in 1821, leaving his son, Prince Dom Pedro, in charge of Brazil. But the Portuguese parliament tried to roll back reforms and reduce Brazil once more to colonial status. This angered Brazilian elites, landowners, merchants, intellectuals, who had tasted autonomy and profit. Popular unrest grew, newspapers called for independence, and Pedro found himself caught between his homeland and the people he now ruled. At this critical moment, one figure played a decisive role: Princess Leopoldina, Pedro's Austrian-born wife. In September 1822, while Pedro was traveling, Leopoldina convened a council and urged him to break with Portugal. She wrote, "The fruit is ripe, it is time to cut it from the tree." Her persuasion, along with pressure from Brazilian advisors, pushed Pedro toward independence. On September 7, 1822, messengers from Lisbon brought orders demanding Pedro's return. By the Ipiranga River near São Paulo, Pedro tore the royal orders, unsheathed his sword, and declared, "Independencia ou morte," independence or death. The cry ignited a movement. Soldiers and citizens rallied. Brazil was no longer a colony, but an empire. Unlike the bloody wars that swept Spanish America, Brazil's independence was relatively peaceful. There were skirmishes, yes, but no massive revolutionary war. And unlike other republics, Brazil became a monarchy, with Dom Pedro crowned as Emperor Pedro I. This unusual path gave Brazil stability, but also tension between old colonial elites and the new empire. From a colony to an empire, Brazil's independence was not born out of rivers of blood, but out of a single cry of defiance. Every September 7th, Brazilians celebrate their nation's independence, and remember the prince who chose not Portugal, but Brazil.